What's up, and welcome to the Very Best Self podcast. I'm your host, Victoria Brown. Tune in each week as I have candid conversations with inspiring humans, including athletes, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and anyone out there making waves. Get ready to leave your comfort zone behind, step into your power, and live a more purpose-driven life. I am so happy that you're here. Now let's do this. What is up, and welcome back, you guys. Oh my gosh. Okay, so today I'm doing a solo episode. It's just me. Well, it's me and it's you. But today is, I heard something recently, or I read something recently, and it kind of like blew my mind. And I was like, okay, I have to record an entire episode around this thing that I read because it inspired me so much. It became this whole past week, teaching at Soul Cycle. It became the message in pretty much every single class that I taught because I just was so inspired. So incredibly inspired. And we love these moments, right? Where we find something or we stumble across something or we read something or you see something that just triggers something in you that just makes you, I don't know, open up like a piece of your mind or your heart or your soul. And you're just like, I don't know, it just pushes you forward. And so anyways, that's what today's episode is all about. The thing that I read, and I'm going to get to that, that I'm going to share with you. And it is about failing. Today's episode at its core is about failure. And so when I think about failure, it's something that we avoid at all costs. All of us, right? We will do everything in our power to protect ourselves from failing. We fear failure. We are embarrassed by failure. We stay working at jobs that we hate, that don't give us passion because we don't want to look like a failure for quitting. We stay worse, to me, even worse than that. We stay in relationships that aren't working. We stay in marriages that aren't working. We continue to be friends with people when it isn't working or serving our highest good because we are so deathly afraid of failing. All of us. I can't say that I'm not. I can't say that I've met anyone who could honestly tell me that they are not afraid of failing. We all are, to some degree, afraid of failing. So I stumbled across this headline, and it's not actually anything new. I think this headline is actually pretty freaking old, to be honest, but it was new to me. And so if it's new to me, then that tells me that it could be new to someone on the other end of this listening to this episode. And so when I tell you I was inspired, it just so inspired. And so the headline that I read, and I'll ask you this, do you know the NBA player who holds the record for the most missed baskets in the NBA? The most missed shots. The person who holds the record for failing more than any other player in the NBA. And the answer to that question is Kobe Bryant. So I don't know about you, but like I think about that, I hear that, I read that, and I'm like, wait a minute, hold the freaking phone. So you're telling me the greatest, arguably one of, if not the greatest player to ever play the game also failed more than any other person to ever play the game. The person who has missed more shots than any other player is also the greatest to ever do it. I don't know about you. My mind was blown. I guess I never really think about, looking for stats in a negative way like that. It's kind of like the reverse of all of it, right? I never really think to look at that kind of thing. Or I think that's not typically the headline that we read, right? It's not. And so when I read that, I just immediately, my head just was like spinning. I just could not wrap my mind around that. And there's so much to unpack There's so much to unpack here, right? It's like, to me, my brain goes to like, okay, like without failure, and sometimes on a massive scale, we can't actually achieve success. What if that thing that we are safeguarding ourselves from, that we are holding ourselves back from all the time on a daily basis, that we're afraid to quit our jobs, we're afraid to break up with someone, we're afraid to do all of these things for fear of what someone might say, what someone might think, for feeling less than in our own minds, for feeling like, we beat ourselves up because we quote unquote failed at something. What if failure is actually like the octane fuel for the jet, right? It's like, that's that thing. Like, you want to fill the gas tank up and you want to like literally fly into outer space. Like, failure is the fuel. Failure is the octane fuel. Failure is the thing that's going to get you there. And that's the thing that we're afraid of. Like, that's the gas. That's the juice. Like, what are we filling the tank with? We miss 100% of the shots that we do not take. And that's not something new. You've heard that before. I didn't make that up. We miss 100% of the shots that we do not take. So here's the question. Here's the golden question. Here is like the $1 million question. Where are you holding yourself back? Where are you holding yourself back? Where in your life could you take more shots? Where can you afford to take more shots? Where are you holding back? That's the question. That's what I see. When I read that headline, that's what I saw. It takes courage to fail. It takes massive amounts of courage to fail, because it means you were willing to take the shot. You were willing to miss. And so that's just like the whole, I don't even know. Like, I don't know why I was just so incredibly inspired by that. And, you think back to your own life and maybe, instead of making a vision board about all the things that we want to achieve, let's think backwards. Let's reverse engineer the entire thing. What if you actually sat down instead? I mean this in all seriousness. What if we sat down instead and wrote down everything we ever failed at? Maybe there's some truth in there. Maybe there's some inspiration in that. Instead of writing all these massive, lofty goals, which is important too, but maybe a journaling exercise is to sit down and think about every time we ever failed. And perhaps it would give us perspective. It would allow us to zoom out on where we are right now, where we want to be, where we want to go, what we want to create, what we want to achieve, what we want to succeed at. If we could zoom out just a little bit and notice that all those times we failed, we learned something. That all those times we failed, it actually set us up for something better or a bigger success, or we learned something that gave us perspective for the next thing that we would have never seen had we not failed. Just let that sink in for a second. Where are you holding yourself back? Where are you not shooting your shot? Think about all the times you failed. And I talked about this before on other, solo episodes, but in case you missed that episode for whatever reason, the biggest one that always comes to mind for me is, the fact that I went through the soul cycle training not once, but twice, right? And, I could have looked at that myself as a failure the first time. Like, I was a failure. I didn't make it, right? But I think the biggest reason that I have found success in the career that I'm at or that I'm in is because I did it twice. I went through the training 2 times and I was like, all right, cool. It didn't go the way that I planned the first time. So I'll try again. And because I tried again, I feel like I'm way more successful than I ever would have been. The thing is too, another thing that comes to mind for me in regards to this is like relationships, right? And this has been me. I've been this girl. I'm very, very, very lucky in this current season of my life to be in an incredible relationship. I am lucky, but that's not been my truth forever. For longer, it was not my truth. For longer, it was, woe is me. I think I'm going to be single forever. I'm never going to find someone. I'm never going to get married. I'm never going to have kids. It's never going to happen for me. Like watching every other person, it felt like in my mind, every other person figuring it out and checking those boxes and feeling like, what's wrong with me? Why is that not happening for me? And the thing is, if you do it right, you're only supposed to get married once, right? One time. Sometimes people do it a couple times. So that's fine. But what does that mean? It means that you're supposed to fail 99.9% of the time before you find that person. You're supposed to fail 99% of the time. So like if you're going on dates and it's not working out, or you're dating people and it's not working out, like we have to flip the script on that as well and kind of apply the same exact mentality around failure towards our relationships. Because like, if the shit isn't working out, why are you being so hard on yourself? Why? Like there's so many people. I might be wrong about this. I'm pretty sure the answer is, I think it's 7 billion people in the world. Is that right? I don't know. I don't even know why I said, is that right? As if you could answer me, LOL. But I believe it is 7 billion people in the world. That's billion with a B. So why are we so hard on ourselves when it takes us maybe a little bit longer? The thing is, like, are you shooting your shot? How many dates are you going on? Let's talk about percentages. Let's talk about odds. Let's talk about like if we were playing a basketball game and how many shots you're actually throwing up at the net. Like, let's talk about that. Like, how many dates are you going on? Are you on apps? Are you putting yourself in a position to meet people? Are you joining clubs or, playing on a volleyball team, or I don't even know, whatever it is, going to church, whatever your thing is. And are you putting yourself in a position to meet people? Actually, let me slow down. Are you putting yourself in a position to fail? Are you putting yourself in a position to fail? Because if we actually want to succeed, that's the secret sauce. We have to put ourselves purposefully in a position to fail. And the more times we fail, the more we learn, the more we figure out, maybe, perhaps just maybe, the better we set ourselves up for success. So I read that headline and it blew my mind. It opened up so much for me. Because on a personal note, I think about all the time things I want to do or create, but I'm like, well, what's so-and-so going to think? Or what's, how is that going to be perceived? Or, man, we can't do that. We can't hold ourselves back because we're afraid to fail or afraid to make a mistake or afraid of, what if it doesn't work out? And then everyone has this X opinion about you. The greatest to ever play the game failed more than any other player to play the game. Right there. That tells you everything you ever needed to know. So the business you want to start, the thing you want to create, the relationship that you hope to find, or the situation that you're in that isn't working for you, let's change the narrative on failure completely. Let's decide that it's okay to fail. Let's decide that we are the only person who gets to decide what success looks like in our lives. And we're also the only person in our lives who get to decide what failure looks like in our lives. Which means just because society says that you quote unquote failed, you don't have to call it that in your own mind. You can make up whatever definition you want of the experience that you had, right? So that's really just it today. Think about the moments in your life when you failed. Think about what you learned. Think about how that failure changed the trajectory of your life or your path, and how you may not have ended up in a certain place that you're at right now today because of that failure had it not happened. And then let's also dive a little deeper in it. right? It's like every blog and podcast and influencer and person out there is like, make a vision board, make a vision board, make a vision board. I don't know. Maybe sit down and really dive into all the moments you failed. And so sometimes they're a little fresh. The wound is like, not healed yet to whatever that failure is. And so sometimes, it takes some time to gain perspective around a certain failure. But maybe it makes it easier to heal the wounds of a fresh failure when you make that list, because you will likely find some of the things that end up on that list at the time when you went through it felt like it was the literal end of the world. It feels like the worst thing that could have ever happened. I remember just before I met Michael, my boyfriend now, I had the biggest heartache I have ever felt in my life. Ever. Like, I'm talking like I'm like crying in the shower. I'm literally crying. I would get off the subway. I would walk home. I would be able to look across the street and see the front door to my apartment. And I was so heartbroken that I felt like I was not going to make it. I could see my front door and I would feel like I was not going to make it to my front door before I literally burst into tears. I was the most crushed I have ever been. And I remember it was shortly after that. I was still going through, it was during that. It wasn't after. It was during that season of my life when, and this is a whole other, episode. It's a story for another episode. But when Michael, my current boyfriend, asked me out on a date, and I was like, oh yeah, whatever. Like, I guess I'll go. Like, I was like, like I'm really just too heartbroken over this other guy. And I don't really think this is going to be like a thing, but like, yeah, whatever, I'll just go. Right. So just a small example that at the time felt like the biggest failure or the biggest loss that I had ever felt. And I was convinced it was like, I don't know, the person for me. And clearly it wasn't. And clearly that failure set me up for something way, 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 way better. At least that's how I feel anyways. That's how I like to see it. But like I said, you get to define how you want to see anything, how you want to experience anything. So make a list of all the times in your life when you failed, and maybe it helps to change the narrative, to change our perspective on failure. And don't forget, the greatest to ever do it missed more than anyone else. We miss 100% of the shots that we do not take. Where are you holding yourself back? All right, you guys, that is it for today. I was just super inspired when I read that headline. I was like, I gotta get on here. I gotta create a little episode all around failure, allow it to be your octane fuel to, fuel the jetpack to get you to wherever it is that you want to go. Let's change the narrative. Let's flip the script. Let's decide that we just feel differently about failure and stop letting it be something that we hold ourselves back from and safeguard ourselves from. Okay. I don't know how Kobe Bryant and basketball turned into also relationships, but like, here we are. I thank you guys for being here, for listening, for going on this journey, for being a part of the VB squad, the very best self squad. If you're here, you know what I always say, if you're here, it's like Olive Garden. If you're here, you're family. All right, you guys, follow me on Instagram at Victoria Brown. Please follow our podcast handle if you are not already at Very Best Self. Share this episode with someone who might need to hear it. Please, please, please always share the episode with someone you love. That's how this thing grows, right? The more people that hear it, the more people experience it. That's how we grow and evolve and make this community the awesome, badass, kick-ass community that it is. What else? 5 stars, like, review. I appreciate you. And I will see you next time.